excited to have the sheriff here with us, TK Waters, and he's an inspiring man. Anybody ever heard of TK Waters before? Stand at attention, please. Let's give him a big round of applause for being here. Honor each of our servicemen. Thank you again for your service. Have you heard that before?
Yes, sir. I appreciate it every time.
Okay, every time. It's worth it, huh?
Yes, sir.
Okay, God bless you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
So I'm going to stand back here, maybe. I probably won't be able to stand back here the whole time because I get antsy and I want to move around a bit when I talk. But listen, thank you, first of all, for allowing me to be here. I'm so grateful. And I like to get the opportunity to talk to people whenever I get a chance. I think it does a lot for us as an agency. It does a lot for us as a city, and it helps us to explain what's going on in our community. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to tell you a little bit about my journey from when I began to where we are today, and tell you, kind of what's going on with the agency as we move forward. So I started my career in 1991. I am the son of a career military man, Command Sergeant Major in the Army. Air Defense Artillery, Patriot Missile Brigade, first Gulf War. Very proud of my pops because that was his brigade, did the Patriot missiles. I actually had T-shirts, but I would wear it, but it doesn't fit. But no, it was a really good upbringing. I really enjoyed my life. I really enjoyed the opportunities that it afforded me. It got me a chance to. I lived over in Europe. I graduated high school in Germany in 1987, which was a really good experience. Like my senior trip, in the United States, the senior trip is like to Disney or my senior trip was to the East German border. And you had a real view and understanding of how you couldn't even give a okay, a thumbs up, or even a wave because there's a man looking at you from a sniper tower on the other side of the border waiting for a mistake to cause an international problem or incident. But that was my life, and I really, really enjoyed it. I enjoyed everything that came along with it. I enjoyed I looked around and I saw people high and tight all the time, and it was just what I was used to. So my plan was, before deciding to come here, was to join the military like my father. Now, wasn't necessarily going to be the Army, but it was going to be, I was going to join the Marines. So in Fort Bliss, Texas, don't get angry at me when I tell you this part. So Fort Bliss, Texas, on my way to work, so I left home a little early to stop by the Marine recruiter, give my information, have a discussion with him, and talk about a few things, and left there, went to work. It just so happens that my dad got off work early that day, and the Marine recruiter called my house and asked for Thomas. Well, I'll share his name. My name's Thomas. His name's Thomas. I'm not a junior, but he asked for Thomas, and my dad says, well, this is Thomas. And then he introduced himself as, I don't even remember his name, from the United States Marine Corps recruiting station number so-and-so. My father said, well, don't ever call my house again, and he hung the phone up. And really, it's funny because that's kind of like if a fireman calls my house to talk to my kid. Don't call my house to talk to my kid. Don't recruit my kid from the fire station. We're not doing that. All right, we're sibling rivalries. We love one another, right? In the military, it's the same way. And my dad's not that he didn't want me to join the military. He wanted me to know why I was joining. He wanted me to get the best out of whichever branch I decided to join. So we sat down and had a conversation. The conversation went like this. He was sitting down, kind of like Representative Black is sitting down, kind of leaning back in his chair. I walked in the door. He said, sit down, boy, I want to talk to you. And whenever he says, sit down, boy, I get a little nervous. He still does that to this day. And he can, though. That's my pops. So we had this conversation. It's not that he didn't want me to join the Marines, and not that he didn't want me to join the Army. He wanted me to realize and understand why I was joining and what I wanted to do. When you're 20 years old, you feel like you can charge hell with a squirt gun and win the battle. So, and you see the Marine Corps, high and tight, uniforms are looking sweet, looking for a few good men. So you're thinking about all that. But what he wanted to do, he wanted to make sure that I knew what I was getting myself into. He wanted to make sure that I joined the branch of the service that was going to also benefit my life moving forward. Not that the Marine Corps would not have. It's just those are the things he wanted me to think about. So I was still in the decision-making process. We came back to Jacksonville from Fort Bliss for a vacation. My sister was getting married. And when we got here, my first cousin, his name was Benjamin Forehand. He's probably 1 year my junior. He was walking in an apartment complex, supervisor at UPS, doing pretty good. Had lived with us for a certain amount of time in Texas because of some issues here. And he was walking through that apartment complex. He got robbed at gunpoint, him and his brother. After being robbed, he was shot and killed execution style right here. And he's 19 years old, very impactful in my life as a young man. The closest person to me I ever lost to violence like that. So naturally, the hair rises up on your neck. You know, if you're a man, red-blooded American male, you want to do something about it. You want to get those who got someone in your family. And I saw the effect that it had on my aunt. And I believe to this day that she died an earlier death because of the torment and that she went through in her mind, recognizing how he suffered from that violence and what caused his death. So I decided I wanted to be a police officer. At the time, back in 1990, I think it was, the sheriff's office, the police department, was having a hiring freeze. So I said, I'm going to take whatever job comes first. So I took the job in corrections in 1991 and began my job as a corrections officer, which was very beneficial for me because coming from a military background and a military life, you don't see a lot. You see high and tight. You see everybody listening. You listen to the horns go off in the morning when every vehicle stops and people get out and salute, and when they lower the flag in the evening, everyone stops and everybody salutes. So that's what I'm used to. So my life in corrections, although it was a year, it taught me a lot. It rounded me out as an individual, taught me how to communicate with people that didn't necessarily agree with my point of view or the society's point of view as a whole, because typically they don't agree with society's point of view. They decide they want to do and live by their own rules, which is, I'll get into more of that later. But I decided I was going to move forward then. So I crossed over in 1993 as a police officer. I worked in patrol. I walked in a lot of different places and to kind of mold who I am. 2005, I began my career in our homicide unit. That's where I knew Director Cayenne ahead of time, but that's where I met Director Romano, and worked in there for 10 years, over 10 years. And I can tell you, the men and women of your sheriff's office deserve a round of applause, not because they're sacrificing their lives. That's one part of it. But the things that they see on a daily basis that human beings are not supposed to see. And I know we have a lot of veterans here that participated in wars like Vietnam. And the things that they see that human beings probably should not see on a daily basis that will work on your mind and work on how you think about things and how you think about society as a whole is horrible, but they maintain their professionalism and they work hard for every single person in this community. And I can tell you as a sergeant in that unit, I worked hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of crime scenes, murders. And it was very disappointing to see what people are capable of doing to one another. And I wanted to make it my goal to try to do what I could to stop that from happening to other families. When my cousin got murdered, throughout my career, and when I got into the homicide section. So working a case, it was probably one of the most rewarding times of my career outside of what I'm doing now. Working in that unit, it allowed me to work a case from the very beginning and be a voice for the voiceless. When I say that, I mean the victims that are victims of murders. And even if they were doing things they weren't responsible, they weren't supposed to be doing, the parents have no reason they should never, ever go through something like that when it comes to their kids. And I can tell you a large portion of them, maybe not kids, but very young individuals, like 18, sometimes as young as 7. We just had fairly recently. And parents shouldn't deal with that. As parents kids should bury their parents. That's the natural order of things. My sons should one day lay me to rest, and a parent shouldn't have to bury their kid. The absolute worst thing ever. And I'll tell you more about that shortly. But along the way, you see that, and you start thinking to yourself, there's a lot more to life than what you see involving the people and what people are capable of doing to one another. And I come from a very large family, a family that's really, really faith-driven. But as a young man, sometimes you take a long walk sometimes on a short pier. Well, I took a long walk short. Fortunately for me, my pier wasn't that short. And made some mistakes along the way, even as a policeman. Did things and made decisions that weren't necessarily wise decisions. But the grace of God led me to where I am today, and he's helped me all along the way. And I can tell you that there's no way that I would be standing here today if it wasn't for his grace and his mercy. You have a man standing in front of you today that recognizes that I am where I am, not because of my own greatness. I am where I am because of the men and women that the Lord's put in my path to help me achieve what I've achieved. And I am what I am because of the great people of this community that allow me to hold this job. And ultimately, he allows me to hold this job. There's no question in my mind about that. Without him, I would not be here. I'll talk more about that as we move forward. So I spent time in that unit working and seeing some of the worst things that you can see. If you've never seen, and this is not to glorify under any circumstances, but if you've never seen what a bullet does to a body, especially an AK-47 or some of these street weapons that they use to a 7-year-old, and how it destroys a body, it's hurtful. It's hard to see. That's why you try to put it away, focus on your job at hand, and you almost look at that individual like an object, not a person. Because if you see it as a person, if you see it as a son or a daughter, you find yourself in your own mind struggling with your mental health. So you work that process. In 2015, Mike Williams won the election as sheriff, and he gave me the opportunity to serve as an assistant chief, which is now a commander. He gave me the opportunity to serve as an assistant chief of our northwest section of town, which is a very large section of town. It goes from 95 to Baldwin, and from I-10 to the Trout River area. So it's very large, a lot of people, and that's how every district is in our city. They're very large districts. I say a lot of times our commanders can run small police departments all over this country because the sections that they work in have that many people in that much area in it. So he allowed me to do that, and I got a lot out of it, but I did that for 10 months, and then he called me down. He says, I have another job for you. I want you to work on a new way to work on violence and how we can stop violence in our community. And it was an army of one, and he said, well, I'll let you build it out to where it needs to be and see if we can make an impact. So for many years, I worked on the other end, along with these gentlemen here, of cleaning up the mess that society causes when it comes to murder and death. So it gave me a unique opportunity to focus heavily on what we can do to try to stop that from happening. That's very difficult to change a person's mind if they have their mind set on doing something. We all know that, right? But at the same time, we want to employ some tactics to try to make sure that stops happening. The biggest thing is proactivity, and I'll get to that also later on. But another one is you identify the individuals in your city because they're not strangers to law enforcement. I can go to these guys right now and ask them names, and they'll be able to tell you who they are, right? There's a large portion of violence in our city, not as much as it used to be, thank God. There's a large portion of violence in our city that's caused by a very small percentage of men that shoot each other for no reason. And I say this, and I think what's happening is this. We're in a situation now in our society where young men are no longer taught to be young men. They're treating young men like they're effeminate, weak, and telling you that being a man and being masculine is wrong. Well, unfortunately, especially in a lot of our communities, you see young men growing up without a father figure. And they don't know how to deal with the emotional stress that they deal with on a daily basis. So instead of dealing with the emotional stress, they deal with it through violence. And they think it makes them tough, but it doesn't make them tough. It makes them not be able to make a good decision when bad things happen and negative things happen. And that's what we notice, and that's what we're seeing. So we go out, put a team together of outreach workers and police officers. We go out, we identify the young men in our communities that have been involved in violent crime. Maybe not wanted by the police, because most of the time they're not. If you're wanted by the police, I'm not coming to talk to you nice. But if you're not wanted by the police, then we'll come talk to you, we'll knock on the door, we'll have a discussion. The discussion goes like this. I'm assistant chief at the time, TK Waters. I'm here on behalf of the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office, Mike Williams. We want to offer you an opportunity. That opportunity is this. We want to keep you safe, we want to keep you alive, we want to keep you out of the prison system. So we have outreach workers that are with us today that'll help you make connections to things that you do not have to help you make that decision to go in a different direction. Sometimes something as simple as mentorship. Sometimes as simple as treating young men how to be men. Society doesn't do that very much anymore. Society tells you that it's toxic masculinity. No, there's such thing as being a man, being a leader, being what you're supposed to be. So we try to teach them things like that. But at the same time, make connections to things that we can help them to make a transition to show them that we care about them. But if you make a decision that this is not what you want to do, and we know you're involved in it, we're going to work extremely hard to use every resource that we have to put you, your buddies, and anybody that's connected with you in prison so that you can't hurt anyone in our community. And that's frowned upon, right? People don't want you, nowadays, people don't want you to be a law enforcer. They want you to pet everybody. Well, I'm not a petter. I grew up in a very regimented household, and I believe that we'll do what's necessary to stop violence, but if you won't let us help you, we will put you in prison. And we'll get you off of our streets to make sure you can't hurt people in our city. Because you do not deserve to live in our city at peace if you're violating people's rights to live freely and peacefully. If you want to make a victim out of them by shooting them, you want to make a victim out of them by robbing them, you want to make the victim out of our stores for stealing from them, you deserve jail, and we're going to put you there unless you decide you want to do something different. How do I know where? Yes, sir. Thank you. How do I know we're knocking on the right doors? How do I know that we're hitting the right spots? I can tell you how I know. Early on when we started this, we went to a door and we spoke to a young man and we showed pictures to his mother. This is what he's involved in. No, that's just his rap personality. Don't like gangster rap, don't like trap music, any of that. Because what it is connected to violence, all of it. They're telling stories about people they victimized. Right, and I get vilified for saying that, but I don't care because I know I've been in the business for far too long. And they're telling stories about people they victimized. But we'll say, she says, he's just a rapper. His truck is only wrapped in him holding an AK-47 because it's just it's part of his rap persona. No, 3 or 4 days later, after going to visit him, I got a phone call. He got murdered on the west side for doing a carjacking in the middle of the street. So we know we're knocking on the right doors and we know we're talking to the right people. We've put some very serious offenders behind bars that we know are responsible for many shootings and murders in our city. We put them in jail for maybe 2 murders. You may have heard of one of the trials, a guy named Queso. He just recently got sentenced to life in prison, which for the life of me, I don't understand why he didn't get the death penalty. He didn't, he should have. Because the Bible says, if a man sheds another man's blood on the earth, by man shall his blood be shed. And that has not changed. We have a responsibility to take care of our community and get rid of the people that want to hurt us and hurt the people that are living the right way. So he gave me that opportunity to do that. And we've been doing that. And while I was in that job, I worked in that job, I knocked on 450 individual doors of men, young men that we know are responsible for violent crime in our city. When I left that job, the undersheriff took that job. He knocked on doors. When he left that job, Director Romano took that job. He knocked on those same doors. We're up to 1,200 visits to young men. Now, these are shooters. These are shooters or guys that have been involved in some pretty serious stuff. So I did that for all those years, and we're still continuing to do that. And as long as you guys allow me to be here, we're going to do that, along with put people in prison that deserve to be in prison. And during that process, someone came up to me and said, hey, have you thought about ever running for sheriff? This is 2017. Now, Mike Williams is new in his seat, and I have a lot of respect for Mike Williams and anyone else that's holding an elected seat. How dare I talk about myself when I'm serving him and serving this community in the role that he's given me? So I never mentioned it, never talked about it. That was a pretty cool idea. Then on August 30th, 2018, my life, and you guys excuse me when I talk about this because it's very difficult still. On August 30th, 2018, at about 8:45 in the morning, I got a phone call from someone to tell me about something that my son was involved in. Not criminal. But to him, knowing his father, it was pretty bad. And I sent him a text, and I said, "What's going on, man? What are you doing?" And he was very apologetic, and he's sorry. And I said, "Well, I'm coming to the school." So I leave the police station, and I'm driving to the school. And in the text, and he sends me a text. Now, I don't even think they know this. He sends me a text. He says, "I'm going to die." I said, "There's nothing in this world worth that? We didn't answer. Just went silent. I got to the school and went to the desk and asked for him. He wasn't there. So I went to his parking space at the school where he normally parks, because you had to pay for a parking space at Providence. And I went to his school and knocked and looked for his car in his parking space, and it wasn't there. So I know all the signs, right? I mean, I've done this for a long time, but I think I'm in a bit of denial. Phone's not answering. My wife can't reach him. I can't reach him. And so I'm driving home. I'll never forget this. And I'm driving like very calmly, because I don't want to lose my mind and drive like an idiot. And it's like the Lord said, hey man, hurry up and get home. Still silent voice. So I turned on my blue lights in my car, drove as quickly as I could, got to the house safely, and his car was parked in the driveway. And you got to understand, we were tight. We have two other sons, also older, but we were tight. We did everything together, basketball and going places and talking about a lot of things. And his car's in the driveway. So I walk into the house, and the first thing I do immediately, I'm still angry because he's not answering me. And I holler out at him again. He doesn't answer. Then one thing I'm thankful about, I got home before my wife did. Because as a man, not that I'm any stronger, my heart's still pliable and weak like everyone else's. But as a man, you want to shield your wife or your loved ones from as much as you can, right? You don't want them to run into these type situations. So I run up the stairs as fast as I can, and I see my dog sitting in the corner, laying down with her head down. And I look to my left, and there he is. Thanks for ringing that phone, that helps. There he is. Gunshot wound to his head. Now, here I am, Mr. Big Policeman, assistant chief with the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office, and there's my son. Couldn't save my own kid. So you imagine the thoughts that'll run through your mind, right? You run across something like that, you're in the house by yourself. The only thing that's there is the dog. And a whole bunch of thoughts run through your mind, some of the worst. But through a relationship with Jesus Christ, his voice outweighed all the other voices. And that's why I'm so steadfast, and no one's ever going to shame me away from talking about my Savior. Because I should not be here. I should not be standing in front of you today, being able to tell this story. But I can, because he holds me up. And I'm so very steadfast in my belief, in my love for him, that I don't care where the noise comes from. I don't care where the struggle comes from. I'm going to do what's right, and I'm going to worry about what he thinks about it first, more than anybody, even including you guys. Because I want to make sure that what I'm doing in this office that he's allowed me to sit in is the right thing. And through him and through my relationship with him, I can stand here today without question. Because that is the most horrific thing that a person could ever experience. I know there's people, I'm not the first one, I'm not the last parent that's going to go through this. But it gave me a different perspective. And you're always learning throughout life. You're learning the entire time. And if you say that you've already learned enough, then you probably shouldn't be in leadership. You can always learn. You can always learn from other people, learn from other people's experiences, and you can use that. So there's a passage in Scripture, I think everybody knows it. All things work together for good, for them that love God, or them that are called according to his purpose. You know what my question was, right? How is this one of those all things? So I asked, how is this one of those all things that work together for good? When you walk in on your 18-year-old son laying there in a seat, leaning over to the side from a gunshot wound to his head. Then all the stuff that goes along with it. I'm a failure as a parent. What did I miss? Did I care enough about my son to even not miss the signs? There weren't any. But all the voices, everything that can come to you at that point, all the voices hit you. But then I got my good friends here who all showed up for me. That's huge. Friends, family, loved ones, that's huge because the noise gets really, really loud in your head. I didn't go crazy, but I'm just telling you what happens in the process of this kind of stuff. So I'm angry with him because I don't even know that he knew the permanency, I guess that's a word, how permanent what he was doing really was. I don't know if he knew that or not, but he did it. And that's something that you have to live with every day. So I get up every day and I say to myself, here's the all things. There's nothing that anyone can do to me in this political process that's worse than that. You can say what you want to say. You can do what you want to do. I won't listen to it because anything worth having is worth fighting for, and I know that I'm here for a reason. There'll be other sheriffs after me, but I know that he's allowed me to be here, and the strength that I've been able to get from just that process of going through that process of my life, a process that I'm still going through. And I tell people all the time that normally marriages don't survive that kind of stuff. They just don't. But my wife's my friend. She's more than just my wife. She's my friend. And I don't know that I talk about it enough around her because she likes to talk about him. I don't. That's a man thing. Men push things to the side and push it away, and that's why it's somewhat therapeutic for me to talk to you guys about it. But it's like the blind leading the blind because neither one of us know where to go other than to him. So that's where we go. And that's how we cope. That's how we deal with it. But I wake up in the morning thinking about him for the last 7 years, and I go to bed at night thinking about him. And I don't need a picture because I have a bunch of pictures in here. Then you try to run from it. We've been so many places in this city through basketball and the people that we've had a chance to meet and know. There's a young man out there that played JV basketball with him today. I just saw him today for the first time since then. And it's amazing that I see him there because I'm outside the entire time in my mind, and these guys don't know it, thinking, can I talk about this today? But he's there. And that's the Lord's way of saying, you can do it. And this are the little things, man. It's the little things. I'm not saying there's no loud voices. If I say I'm hearing loud voices, y'all probably run me out of here. There's no loud voices, but the little things that the Lord does to confirm things with you is incredible. So I see that young man out there, and I just start smiling from ear to ear, and it made me know that I can come here and talk about this today. Because it goes from day to day. Sometimes I'll never talk about it. For weeks, I'll never talk about it. Months, I'll never talk about it. I don't think I've talked about it to these guys in a very, very long time. But because of the strength that you get from the Lord and having a relationship with him, allows me to keep driving and keep moving forward. People look at you throughout time, and they'll look at you and they'll say, look at this guy, especially the haters, because you see it on social media, even when you don't want to see it, even when you try to ignore it. Even the haters, the news media, they'll look at you and they treat you like nothing's ever happened to you. Like, this guy doesn't have a problem in the world. He doesn't understand real struggle. Oh, really? Everybody has issues. Everybody has struggles. Everyone has problems. And I'm no different. I'm just happen to be a man that stands up here and is willing to stand for something and not fall for just anything and stand up and say that we're going to fight for this community. And here's what that's taught me, another way that we use this for good, is I don't want to see another parent, although it'll happen, I don't want to see another parent deal with that kind of loss. Wasn't for murder. You guys hear what it's from. And I'm going to tell you, you know how hard it was for me to say that word? Suicide? Connected with you and someone in your family? That's a hard thing to do. Because you have to reconcile, there's a stigma connected to it. And there's an embarrassment kind of, and a shame kind of. And maybe it's something that I put on myself, but people feel that way. Early on They had painted a parking space for him at Providence, and then Providence erased it. And they got rid of it so someone else can park there, which is perfectly understandable. A lot of the kids got really upset and said, why did they do it? Just could they have let it sit there for another day or so, or a little bit longer? Then one of the posts, I pick out the worst one, of course. Oh, he killed himself. Don't make him a hero. But that's the kind of stuff that comes along with that. So that's why I turned off social media. These guys will tell me, Sheriff, don't look at it. And I don't, because it affects you. It does, it really does. And these people that are out there, these keyboard warriors that are out there talking about this stuff, normally don't do anything but run their mouths while they're living in their parents' basement, wearing their underwear, tighty whities. That's usually what it is. So how we use that for good, and I'm gonna stop talking, I'll take a few questions. How we use that for good, we focus on saving lives. We focus on families and parents, and not wanting to see families and parents have to deal with that, have to deal with such a horrible loss. A 7-year-old almost broke my heart. How do you shoot a 7-year-old when you know he's walking with somebody else? You know it, and you do it anyway. How do you shoot anybody for that matter? Unless you have to. I'll do it in a second if I'm saving a life or defending my own. But just for malicious purposes, because someone said something that you don't like, it's ridiculous. So my drive, my own son, I'm without one son, but I have 2 beautiful other sons, a stepdaughter, and I have 4 grandkids. So the Lord provides. And I look at those grandkids and my sons and I say, I'm going to be here for you guys and make sure you guys know, because they remember too, they lost also. And so we're focused heavily on taking care of our community, focused heavily on not allowing people to hurt other people's loved ones, whether it be our elderly, whether it be our young age or middle age or young people, period. There's zero tolerance for it. I have none. I have no tolerance for it. I don't care about your social circumstance. There's no excuse or reason to commit violence against anybody else. And for those people that are out there doing it, they have a problem. And no one wants to talk about it. But I'll talk about it. Because there's no excuse for it. And we're not going to excuse it. You have issues, that doesn't mean you get to victimize other people. That means you have to behave like everyone else, every other citizen in this community, in this country, like you're supposed to behave. So we'll use that and focus on continuing to get stronger, continuing to work, continuing to build our agency. We lowered crime. We lowered the murder rate from 128 in 2023 to 59 in 2024. We're slightly up above that now. I'm going to tell you why. Because domestic cases are unbelievable. Some of the things that young men have been doing to their mothers in this community is unbelievable. And that's why we find ourselves a little bit up. But we are in a great position in Jacksonville. Once too many. We're going to work as hard as we can to stop them. We're going to be proactive. It's not a dirty word. A police officer should be driving around looking for violators, looking for people lurking around in your neighborhoods that should not be there, being there in times of night that they should not be there. You need to be stopping cars. You need to be checking on signal 13s, which is suspicious people, and later for the rest of the nonsense. We're going to do what we're supposed to do. If we're not doing that, you're not getting the bang for your buck. That is our responsibility. We're not going to listen to anyone that says, that's socially unjust. No, it's what you're paying us to do. The only time you sit under a tree is when you're writing a police report. Other than that, you better be out there patrolling, taking care of the members of this community. Thank you for your time. I'll take any questions you may have.